Welcome. Another episode, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights. I'm here with Andy Broome, as you can see from the show notes, the episode title. And Andy's the primary senior vintage grader. He's the go-to guy here for if you got BGS cards and they're old. Andy, I'm sure, looked at it and either did the grading or approved the grading. But before we get into Andy's story, thank you to the sponsors. First up, Beckett Media, which includes Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication, the online price guide, the magazines, books, all the different stuff all the good stuff going on here. I'm actually at Beckett Media in the offices here to visit with Andy today. Other sponsors, ComC out in Seattle, Burbank Sports Cards, Rob Barris out in Burbank, California, Mike Fruitman with Mike's Stadium Sports Cards in Aurora, Colorado, Heritage Auctions not far away, as well as Huggins & Scott, which is in Maryland, a couple of great auction companies. And then Topps, Upper Deck, and Panini, three outstanding card companies. So I got some great sponsors, but Andy, I'm looking forward to hearing about how you got started, how you even came. I know some of the stuff, but I might learn something today, and I'm sure our listeners will be delighted to hear. So welcome, Andy Broome.
Thank you. Thank you.
How did you get started, and how did we wind up here in the same office together discussing your story?
Well, like most kids in the 80s, I collected cards at a young age. But what really set me off on more than collecting cards, what set me off to learn more about counterfeits and alterations. It was in 1988. I'm going to age myself here. Yeah. I think I was about 12. And my grandfather was an antiques dealer, just a part-time, wasn't a full-time thing. And so we would go and set up the flea markets where he would buy and sell antiques. And I'd been collecting cards for several years, and I found this shoebox of cards. And in it were these 1938 Gowdy Heads Up cards. Yeah. Were just
one of my favorite sets.
Great set. Love it. Love it. And so I'm seeing these for the first time ever. They're mixed in with some 70s cards, just kind of mixed in there, and I'm just grabbing every one of them. And they were very cheap. I don't remember exactly how much, but just, a few dollars. And so I got home, and I had a copy of one of the Beckett Almanacs. And so I started going through to find them, and sure enough, there's these cards. And at the time, I think the Bob Feller was like $600 is what it was listed for. I was like, oh my gosh, here, I've made what a discovery. This is newsworthy. Well, come to find out, those were Dover reprints, and the Dover reprint had been removed off the back.
It's kind of scratched off.
It was scratched off, and that's what my 12-year-old mind took a little while to kind of figure out. Why do they all have this same spot on the back?
They're more sheeny as well.
They are.
But is that wiped down a little bit, or was that just
no? Looking back, I think they were glossy. I just had never seen these cards before, so I had no reference. And
listeners, if you find a really glossy card from the 30s, you might reconsider paying big bucks.
That's a very good red flag to watch for. Yeah. But, at that age, I remember thinking, I'm going to learn about this so this doesn't happen again.
Oh, good. And so you were a collector, and then at some point you joined, was it PGS?
Yes.
So you were a grader for a competing grading company.
I was.
And how did you get that? Was it James?
It was James. Yeah, James Rogers. Yeah.
He was a nice guy.
Oh, yeah.
So I think we were already grading at that point, and I thought. And
it's right around the same time, 1999.
And PSA was pretty well established.
They were. Yeah.
So how did he identify you, or you identify him?
Well, I knew a lot of people in the local area where I was from in the card scene, but James and I never had crossed paths.
Okay.
And it was at a mall show, card show, and it was a oh gosh, I've gone blank. I think it was a 40 on. I think it was a 40 on Jackie Robinson.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was, but it was a pretty nice card. And turns out the guy who's selling this, there's only two people fighting over it, and it was James and I.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we were going back and forth on this card, and then we met after it, and that's how we got started. And
cool.
And that was right at the time where he was considering starting the grading company. He was just putting the pieces together.
And were you involved right from the beginning with him, or
just about the beginning? We had
not started. Who was doing the grading if you weren't there? Was he?
No. There was another a guy that he started with that was a modern guy.
Okay.
And that didn't really start actual grading until I actually came on. It was perfect timing.
Were you salaried, or were you getting paid by the card, or how did it start?
No, it was salaried.
Yeah. And how did y'all get critical mass of cards? Was James out there, getting business from dealers or collectors, or?
It was twofold. It was word of mouth. Yeah. We were a small company, so. One of the big things we always heard is I can pick up the phone and call, and a human answers.
And y'all were sort of regional, it seemed like to me. You were more in the Southeast or something. I mean, I know you probably did stuff from everywhere, but the shows it seemed like we're more.
Yeah, we do like the national, and we do like the sports fest when it was in Chicago. But yeah, it was a lot of the Southeast stuff. But we'd advertise, and so we would have national stuff coming in, but real regional, for sure.
And we wound up buying the company. And I've joked with you. I think we bought the company in order to get you. And nothing against James, because I think he's a really nice guy from what I could tell. I like James, but he was a business guy. You were a card guy. You were the grader. You were the grading guy. And we were, again, I know you can grade modern cards, but your passion is older cards.
That's right.
And one of the things that I don't know that we kind of segregated the business a little bit in the beginning with the BVG brand.
Yeah, that was before I came
was
on.
confusing to some people.
I think it was in the beginning. I think that people didn't quite understand the difference and why there needed to be a difference, and that was
we perceived that there needed to be a difference, which was probably accurate in the purest sense.
Yeah,
but the marketplace kind of spoke. They didn't want to even have any thought that there might in any way be two standards.
Right.
And so, anyway, but you seem to do really well with that. And it's got to be a lot of fun handling really cool cards.
It is. It's so much fun. Some of the greatest highlights, I guess, if I had a highlight reel, of course, grading the Wagner back in 2008. But so many great cards, the Ty Cobb back Ty Cobb, the Doyle era. But what I really have loved is the opportunity to have gotten to work with some original collections, pre-war collections. 2 here in Texas that were put together by the individual, and then his or her family.
What are you working with them? You mean getting them graded or getting them?
Well, at the time we were doing auctions also, they were looking for what to do with these, and so they came to us, and we kind of one-stop shop. I was able to look at them, assess
here's some
them.
to grade, and here's how you. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I love buying collections.
Oh,
I couldn't do it for so many years, but it's a lot of fun to see something, and then I like to organize it and all that. So you're probably the same DNA.
And it's awesome with pre-war because so many you see these patterns. One of the collections came from the Temple, Austin area here in Texas, and so there were some T210s and T206s with the old mills and Hindus. But it was great to be able to see these backs, that they're primarily all second series. They're backs that are southern backs, and it all just all fell into place.
Collected in Central Texas.
They were, the original. They came from the original
Leaguers,
family.
Texas Leaguers, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, very fascinating stuff.
Yeah. Are you a collector now?
I am. Pre-war has always been my focus, but here in the last year or so, I've kind of stepped away a little bit from pre-war sports. I still collect, T206s, of course.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
The E90-1 American Caramels is still my favorites of all time. But I've really focused more on now my Victor Starfin Japanese collection.
All right.
And which I love. What's
the connection there?
Just the story. I fell in love with the story so many years ago. This guy that just, is a white Russian in Japanese baseball before the war. And it's just one of the stories I was fascinated with. So I started collecting his cards probably, almost 20 years ago.
Anything that's easy to find, Andy?
No, I don't. Well, somebody told me this theory. They said, and this isn't bragging, but it's true. I've been doing this for 21 years. Yeah. I've pretty much seen and handled most every known card, and some cards that we were fortunate enough to be the first to categorize and put in the book. But you kind of get a little jaded. You still love it. I love it, but you start in the collecting sense. You're like, it's almost like I gotta have a stronger drug. I gotta chase something different.
It's when I was trying to get stuff in the pre-grading days, really I was in a lot of the nationals I went to. I'm trying to get type cards, so it was a similar kind of a thing. But the push-pull was I'm having to get type cards for everything new and everything old.
Right.
And so if it was old, and people would say, well, don't you just have a want list? Well, you can't have a want list for what you don't know exists.
That's right.
You just have to know, hey, I've never seen that before. And, Rich Klein commiserates on that. I mean, I just realized if I haven't seen it, and Rich hasn't seen it, and Andy hasn't seen it, I bet it's a pretty rare card. And what people don't realize is there are many cards out that are rarer than the Wagner.
Oh,
They
absolutely.
just don't have the notoriety, and they're not the key card in just such an iconic set. What do you think about the David Hall collection? Did you of T206s that was it's I guess partly auctioned off, maybe mostly auctioned off from Heritage.
Mostly. It's fascinating that it's time to let that collection go, but it's such an important collection in the hobby. It really is. I mean, it's
it'd be hard to assemble that with
Yeah.
a lot of money, because it not only was a lot of obscurities and rarities, but a lot of condition rarities as well.
Exactly. I kind of equate it to, if you're a coin collector, the Eliasberg collection, who had one of everything of U.S. coins. And it's kind of how this was. And neither one of those could ever be put together again, at least not without some major funds.
Right. Do you have any questions of me? I mean, you've never been involved in the price guide side of this company.
Not on actual pricing.
I know you weren't when I was around.
Yeah, I just.
But do you help the guys if something comes up?
I do, and also, I make changes in our database, additions and changes. There's the German cigarette card. Is it the Marati brand? But it's an Olympic swimmer and a guy who's in knickers and a little cabbie hat, and forever has always been called that's Babe Ruth. Well, it's not Babe Ruth. And so we actually had it at one point cataloged that way. So I said, let's change that. So contrary to some people, I get, when I get feedback, you don't ever want to listen to the collector or whatever, but I want to make changes. People show me things. I want it to be correct.
I mean, it seems obvious that people want to think what they want to think. But any questions you have of me? Because we had some overlap, but not as much, I guess, because I've been gone for a long time now. But I know you're doing a great job here. But what any legacy questions or current questions?
Well, one question I had for you, Jim, I guess it does pertain to grading. What sparked the idea of we need to get into grading at that time? I guess which would have been late 90s.
When I look back of the different things that I'm proud of, I'm proudest of creative things. I'm not a copycat at all. And so at some point it looked like PSA was starting to take off and really get real traction. For a while they really weren't. It was just, they had done coins and we're going to do cards and we'll see what happens.
Right.
But there wasn't a lot of internet. So, there wasn't any reason why, most transactions were trusted between a trusted seller and a trusted buyer. They were at a show, at a shop, it's like that. So,
right.
But as the internet came on, and so as PSA got traction, I had concerns. Number one, I just was conservative on the conflict of interest. But secondly, I didn't want in any way to be a me too. If they're doing grading, well, we'll do it too. We'll just do what they do. So Mark and Harwell and others, we kind of huddled up, and Mark did a lot of research on, we're not just going to have a slab, we're going to have the best slab. We're not just going to have, we're going to have the best database. We're going to have, we're going to be putting fresh eyes on the common problem that here's a card, what is it authentic, and what's the numerical grade. And we're going to be we want to be a little more scientific with our 4 factors that we looked at, and we wanted to be, I guess, more open about it. A lot of the original grading was black box.
Right.
You put it in, but by showing people how we graded, or at least the elements that were involved, it made it that it. So I thought there were enough in the inner sleeve. There were just so many things. And then the gold and silver and bronze and black label, all that stuff. There were enough innovations there, and as well as a different way of marketing and pricing, because we were different in a lot of ways.
Sure.
And once I saw that, and I realized we'd always been doing grading, it's just that we weren't doing other people's grading. We were when we were doing price guides. You had to have some sense of the grade. Or the pricing make no sense. The same card could be the same price, but if it's not in the same condition, it's very explainable.
Right.
So so I'm really glad we did. I don't know that I was the holdout, but I just, again, we were, these were busy days. So it's not like we were looking for something to do,
right.
But we were really trying to provide a service to collectors. We're always trying to help people enjoy the hobby more. And I'm so glad we jumped into that. And some of the graders that we added in those early days are still there. And you came along reasonably quickly.
Yeah, actually, next month will be 15 years for me.
So we got a great team, and again, a lot of longevity, a lot of loyalty, and that's gratifying to me. So I think I'm really glad you came over. It's not a remote grading job. It's not like you could say, well, I'd love to come work for you, but I'm staying home. I'll just ship me the cards and I'll ship them back. So people have to relocate here. And I think that Dallas has been a great city. I hope you've really enjoyed it. And it's been great for me and hopefully for other families of employees. So Andy, I'm so glad you took a chance and came onto our team at the time, and I hope you continue to do great work here.
Well, thank you for taking a chance.
Thanks for being my guest. And thank you, listeners. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode.